With that, ladies and gentlemen,
thank you.
Thank you so much once again. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to move on to our next session. Our next session is on performing physics-based AI for ground truth heart subcellular organelle segmentation using simulated expert. And to present this to us, we have with us Dr. Dilip K. Prasad, who's currently an associate professor at Department of Computer Science, UIT, the Arctic University of Norway. He completed his PhD from Nanyang Technological University in Singapore in 2013 and BTech in Computer Science from Indian Institute of Technology, Dhanbad in 2003. Before joining UIT, he was a senior research fellow at Nanyang Technological University and a research fellow at National University of Singapore. Before his PhD studies, he worked as an IT professional on smart technology with different globally recognized companies such as Philips, Panasonic, IBM, MediaTek, and Infosys. Presenting to all of you with a thunderous round of virtual applause, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Dilip K. Prasad.
Thank you, Ms. Fatima. So for a very nice introduction, and thank you, the other speaker, dealing with a very important topic, which is getting help using AI. So I am sharing my screen. So
it is visible, Professor.
So am I audible and I am visible?
Yes, you're clearly audible and you're visible as well.
Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being in my presentation. And this is a work of our BioAI lab at UIT. And my name is Dilip K. Prasad, and I'm a faculty at Department of Computer Science, UIT, the Arctic University of Norway. So today, the topic will be how can we deal with a kind of domain where getting a ground truth or labeling a ground truth is hard or may not be feasible. So to proceed further, and the domain I have chosen is a microscopy, the cell organelle segmentation. So in our lab, our lab is a BioAI lab. What we do in our lab is we deal with different types of biological signal originating from organism like wearable device, like accelerometer data, or EEG device, which is taking measurement of the brain signal, or organ, like we are doing research on organoid, where we are actually growing the organs inside our lab, like heart tissues, we are growing kidney tissues, we are doing, and then we are imaging it and doing the AI to find out different kind of information and knowledge which a microscope gives. We also work with the organ level and we work with the tissue level. We are also doing tissue imaging, and then we are doing the cell level live cell imaging. So more or less, whatever data we are getting from humans or animals of different signals from them, we are actually applying AI and doing this BioAI application as well as AI development for solving this kind of problem. So to give little brief information, so like we are doing computer vision for diagnosis of different kind of diseases using the OCT, CT scan, PET scan, whatever scan we can think about. And then for organism level, the psychological health like motivation detection, the sentiments in the humans, and then the microscopy, which is a ground truth heart problem. And we are using physics-based AI to solve different kind of problem or to help this microscopy domain and the biologist to get better scientific information. We are further working on this core machine learning architecture like scalable AI or interpretable AI. In scalable AI, I mean to say that currently whatever model we see, modern deep learning models we see, they are fixed in input and output. Means we have to fix the number of input in the beginning, that this many input will be there, and this is the output. But imagine the autonomous car domain, let's say autonomous system, where a different car has to communicate with different other autonomous car, which can be bike, which can be mobility device. And it is also getting signals from other humans, traffic lights. Now, if we fix the number of input there, how can a system deal with the change in the scenarios? In certain places, you have a high traffic, certain places you have a low traffic. And at also different point of the time in a day, the traffic can go high and low. So if we fix the size of our model, then doing a better job will be less possible. So we are building up a scalable AI architecture, which can dynamically change depending on the number of input and if the input is going missing. So this kind of work we are doing, and explainability or interpretability is a very important topic in present time. The deep learning models are practically a black box model. Scientists from a different parts of the world, they are trying to make their model interpretable. We also work with bio-inspired evolutionary optimization to use at certain places where they are useful. And the dynamic complex environment, which like autonomous car or the environment inside the living cell, where the organelles like mitochondria, vesicles, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi bodies, they are all interacting with each other. So getting a ground truth there is a hard. So, and if we are developing certain kind of algorithm, validating will be further hard. So we are building up dynamic complex environment using this drone-based communicating agent and the information coming from them. So that is more or less about our BioAI lab. Now coming to the topic of the today's talk, the microscopy images of subcellular organelle. Why we are interested in microscopy images of subcellular organelle. So if we go to the microscope or any kind of imaging device, we have imaging device to see a different scale of object. Excuse me. So we have this telescope which can see far object, the stars and galaxy. And among them, we have this lab-based telescope which can see certain amount of information, but we have more expensive and very sophisticated Hubble telescope which can see more detail of the galaxy or our stars and planet. Then we have a camera which actually designed to behave as the human see the object or scene. So camera is meant to mimic the way humans see, and what is the limitation of human eye, that is also lie more or less with the camera. But then we have more smaller object, and for that microscopes are built. And if we see a low-cost microscope, which can see cell level information, but if you want to see deeper inside it, we need more expensive microscope, which can see deeper inside the cell. Now, but every thing will have its limitation, like microscope does comes with its own imperfection, and it has its own limitation. For example, if normally in a cell level experiment, we have to tag the cell with some kind of chemical agent, and let's say that tagged element is one molecule. And if this particular is image in a microscope, and microscope has this optical blur, which comes from its point spread function, and then this, when taken to the camera sensor, which is actually a digital error is going to be there. So there it is going to be further digitalized, and it will have further imperfection. Due to this, what happened, the camera microscope has its own resolution limit, and adding this optical blur and then digital sensor error, if this kind of 4 molecules are present closer, after the imaging, it will actually look like one molecule. So the imperfection in microscope is there, and currently the whatever wide field microscope we have, it can see up to the level of 250 nanometer to 300 nanometer. That is a resolution limit in the visible spectra domain. And the size of a single pixel in a camera is typically 80 nanometer to 100 nanometer. So if one pixel we want to depict in a measurement, then one pixel in a camera will be, or microscope camera will be 80 nanometer to 100 nanometer. Now, why are we discussing this microscope and all these things? So mitochondria, which is basically the energy, if I'm talking to you in this Zoom, basically it is based on the energy, and somewhere this mitochondria is generating inside my body the energy. And these mitochondria are of size 200 to 500 nanometer, and there are some vesicles are there, which can be liposome or autophagosome or many kind of zomes. So collectively we call it vesicles. They are the courier inside the cell, which pass information or chemical from one place to other place inside the cell, and they based on that some interaction happen. And their size is 50 to 200 nanometers. So if we make one pixel error, then a vesicle can be look like a mitochondria. So that is how difficult this domain and limitation of this domain. So as you see, what we do, because the imperfection of our system, what we do, if we see this is a mitochondria animation, and on top the different kind of chemical has been placed, and that chemical when emit the spectra, it is imaged to the camera of the microscope, or from the microscope we see. So basically we don't see the mitochondria, we actually see the different point where these molecules get attached to, and that is actually get imaged. And when we see in the real microscope data, this is a live cell microscope data, a fluorescent microscope data, what we see is simply a 2D image of a thread-like structure. We don't see a 3D structure, because what we are actually observing in a microscope is all this fluorescent tagged on top of this mitochondria. And that is we are getting because of the limitation microscope have it. So point of our study of mitochondria and vesicle is due to that. If we see the statistic of the American health and how people are dying, so most of the people are dying because of heart disease and cancer. And for heart disease also, failure of mitochondria or mitochondria not generating enough energy, and the other functionality which is done by vesicle is not happening, and due to that the different kind of cardiovascular disease can happen. Further, cancer happens because of the balance inside the cell get disturbed, and cells start multiplying in a faster rate than the normal. And a lot of time it is maybe due to these organelles are not functioning as desired, and the task which different organelle has to do is not being done. Currently, we do not have a microscope which can actually go see deep inside the living cell and see what is mitochondria and what is vesicle and how they are interacting. So our limit is to 80 nanometer to 50 nanometer, but we want to see 50 to 100 nanometer object. We do have electron microscope, but for electron microscope, it is basically is one photo. Like if I am like this, and the cell has been kept like this, and electron microscope will only take the scene of this state. So it cannot do this state if I'm changing the state. So what we need is to image the things inside the cell in its living condition without disturbing its internal environment. And on that direction we are working, and there we lie. We did segmentation, like we did mitochondrial segmentation and subcellular organelle segmentation. And this particular work has been recently been accepted at Nature Machine Intelligence. It is in the production phase. And the NMI also has accepted this interesting area. And here comes our subcellular organelle segmentation. Now, I am talking about microscopy and subcellular organelle, where thus comes the AI. Now, this domain, as you see, is a difficult to actually annotate. Now, if we have the labels available for everything inside the cell, then the modern AI method, deep learning method, can easily do the segmentation to a reasonable job. But now this domain is actually a ground truth hard domain. Let me show it. So these are the 5 images of a mitochondria. And we ask the 12 scientists, life scientists, microscopists, and data scientists to actually image them, annotate them. So as we see, every level of scientists, microscopists or data scientists or biologists, every one of them had done not a reasonable job. As we can see, even the intersection of union is as good as 0.77. While since we have simulated this data is from a simulation, so the ground truth is basically this. But when we gave this data to our different annotists who did annotation, they could only do what they can see. As I have said earlier, that microscope has its limitation that it can only see that up to a particular limit. But we were trying to annotate, which is beyond that limit, and that is how the microscope see. So the error is there. The 1 pixel error can change a lot. So over different kind of shape, we did this study, and it is evident that this is a ground truth hard problem. Even if the human does this annotation or any expert does this annotation, there will be a considerable level of error in the segmentation data. Now, let's assume that annotation is done. We have ample time, right? So for one image, it takes, one mitochondria, it takes around 10 seconds to annotate. And if we see a real live cell data, there will be thousands of mitochondria. I'm talking about one organelle mitochondria, not talking about every other organelle. Now to annotate this one single image, it can take 3 hours for each cell. So if you do the manual annotation, the time factor will require days to annotate the labels, and not taking into the consideration that there is a time required for experimentation, like every cell experiment may take 3 to 4 weeks. Means every time we do the imaging, we don't get a good image. Multiple times we have to repeat. So 3 to 4 weeks, we can get a good one-time experiment, and that kind of, we need thousands of them. So just capturing the data is going to take few years, and then annotating will take few years. Do we have, and that is how this ground truth hard domain is. Now, we have the data. Now there are unsupervised methods are there. Let's see if the unsupervised method can do a reasonable job. So we tried different, because unsupervised methods are fast, right? And so let's see they do a job. Now this was the ground truth, and the different unsupervised method is not able to do a reasonable segmentation. The MIOU, mean IOU intersection of union look like 0.67, but it is not anywhere close to how it will look like. So when we do a biological experiment, there are 3 experiments are there where we are actually inducing death of the cardiac heart cell of a rat. And in the normal condition, if we do the measure a particular kind of organelle structure, in the normal, the Voilin chart will like this. If we induce the cell death, that means removing the oxygen from the cell, it will look like this. And if we introduce a chemical which actually prevent the cell mitochondrial death, then the structure will look like this. With the manual segmentation, if we are able to do, we did it for 30 cells, and the structure look like this with the manual segmentation, but with the proposed segmentation, we found the observation different. But if we had done this unsupervised, we can do the job, but the outcome will be completely different. It is nowhere near what actually is happening inside the cell. So the unsupervised is not a way to go. So here comes this physics-based AI, using the concept of physics to solve the problems of a domain and using the AI. So we are presently in the data-driven AI world, where what we do, we have the set of input, and then we try to map it with what will be the output. It can be classification, regression, segmentation, or any kind of thing. We practically have input, and then we have output in the supervised world. Then we put a model inside it, and that model will have its intermediate features. And then with the mapping between the loss of the predicted one from the ground truth, we try to update the intermediate features, and the model updates are there, the neural weights updates are there. And this is a repetitive process. We have lots of data. And then that's how this model get trained, and we see a very nice output, and lots of good systems are being built based on this. Now that require lots of annotated and labeled data, and also the ground truth. Physics-based AI can be applied for a different area, like designing a loss function, coming up with a better architecture, or introducing the physics concept inside the architecture, improving the feature space, like input and intermediate feature space can be improved, and also the model initialization. Like a lot of people are doing this transfer learning by doing the better model initialization and retraining it. And it can also be done using simulated data generation for training the model. And there comes this ground truth hardness of this domain. The ground truth hardness lies in multiple domains, like microscope is anyway we are seeing today, astronomy, geology, climate. And in this domain, getting the real ground truth data is sometimes not possible and sometimes not feasible. Means it may take a lot of effort or risk are there to get a data. So in our microscopy also, we have a problem of getting a real good ground truth data. So the thing is that, can we do the task by synthetic data set? Recently, a lot of research teams are working on getting the AI trained using the synthetic data, and we tried in this area. So we simulated our data. We simulated our data based on the model of the microscope and the physics. And then we trained the neural network or AI system, and then we finally tested on a real data. So real data has not been used in the training phase, only simulated data is used. So what general approach is that expert is going to annotate, and then that is been used to train the network, and then the segmentation is possible. That is a conventional approach. But what we did, we simulated an expert which can generate our data based on the different stages of microscope and how the organelle look like, and how the fluorescent chemical is going to tag, and what kind of emission spectra they are emitting. And then we trained it, and then finally tested on the real data. And we got a really extremely good result. And now the thing is that, how did we design our simulated expert, or how we developed it? So what we did, we collaborated with our collaborator, biologists, cardiologists, physicists, microscopists, and the AI people. We come up after discussion and together that we can model this organelle by knowing the dimension and what is generally the structure appears, how this emitter get attached to it, and what is the photokinetics of the emitters, like the fluorescent chemicals, and then multiplying with the point spread function of the microscope, and then we get the convolved image Then we added the reasonable noise, which is present in the general microscope experiment. And then we binarize it. That is a ground truth of the image. Below is shown that how we are getting the data backbone first and then putting the fluorescent chemicals on top of it. And after that, this is how the fluorescent labels are attached. So we have looked into the data sheet of the label supplier, the fluorescent label supplier. And based on that, we simulated this particular thing. So as we see, I have already said that how we did. So we took the nodal points and then we made it a skeleton. And then we put the 3D skeleton on it. And then we put the emitters on top of it based on the concept, how they attach and then how they emit the emission spectra. And with that, we get the ground truth, and that multiplied with the microscope point spread function, and then we get the noise-free data, and we add the noise which is present, like Poisson noise, and that's how the simulation engine is made. And you can see this kind of data we made, and we trained the deep learning model, and then we finally tested on this live cell data, and we got this output. And we segmented this mitochondria. And with this, we are able to see different kind of mechanism happening inside the cell. Like this is a mitochondria doing fusion and fission, different kind of mitochondrial changes. You see the number highlighted like 20. It is doing a flip motion, a change of the motion is happening. And we also see it is the movement pattern of the mitochondria, like number 3. And we also see the migration, the number 6, how it is migrating inside the cell. So this is how we got it. And it is nice to see that simulated expert is doing a reasonable job. We could have done using the human, but since we are doing this simulation, we know precisely where is the point emitters are attached, and we can simulate what different kind of thing, and we even know that what will be the size of pixel, and then if we also can have very precise ground truth by the simulation environment, which is unambiguous, which cannot be, because this is based on physics, and that will how it will look like. So ambiguity is not there. What will be the result and impact of it? Doing all this, right? So as we see, if we see the result of this is the original data, and this is manual ground truth is made for the data. And the top we see the unsupervised method segmentation approach, and then we simulated the data and we trained different kind of models, which is a deep learning model. And as we can see, the simple unit is giving MIOU of 0.76, which is quite good. And this particular looks very closer to what the ground truth the human has annotated. In the quantitative terms, we did experiment with lots of data, different cell level experiment. And in the simulation environment also, we are getting a segmentation MIU of 0.91 F1 score and MIU 0.89, 0.92 of a large set of training data in the simulation condition or validation data. In the live cell also, we're getting a lower result than the simulation world, 0.76. One of the reason could be like the manual annotation had an error, and that our method is giving a better performance. It is giving a sharper segmentation, while human has annotated a bit blurry and not enough pixel has been covered by human. As we have seen in our demo experiment, there can be error that in our simulation, certain simulation we have not been able to do, like network type of mitochondria that can introduce some error. But it is a work we can improve further. Now with this segmentation, what biologists wanted to study is that how the different types of this mitochondrion actually changes in a different experimental condition. So there are three types of mitochondria. We have done simulation: dot, rod, and network. We actually simulated dot and rod. The network is after the segmentation, if it has more branches, that we counting it as a network. And under different condition, we can count how many of them are there and what is the size area they are covering. And then in a different like network, what is, whether they are increasing or not. In another experiment, we actually induced the heart attack in the cell, that kind of signal we introduced, and then we added a chemical which actually can prevent can help the heart cell to recover. As we see, when we introduce a particular type of mitochondrion increase, and once this drug started acting, then it actually helped to stabilize the cell. So the green is actually the dot type of mitochondrion. As we can see with induction, the rod is trying to become dot, and the rods are getting separated from the network. So more and more dots are getting formed, and as we can see from our metric also, that is what happening. Now, our simulation expert, since we have designed it, we can, if a new microscope comes, we can change it. If a new structure, we can model it. New chemical come, we can also model that. And if a new model is coming, we can also do for that. So it is quite flexible. I think the time we have is less, and I should move forward. So with this simulation supervision also, we are able to find out the micro-motion pattern inside the cell, and we are able to learn the motion pattern inside the cell. And by using the concept of physics, we converted the 3D the structures, the video into 2D structure using the motion preserving super resolution algorithm called Musical. And using that, we train the shallow residual attention network. We use the shallowness, and then our task is to actually classify different kind of, there is a video is there, how the simulated vesicle will look like. And this is under noisy condition. So we are able to get it, and we trained it, and we are able to do the motion classification of the cell. And that's, we can see this vesicle is going forward and touch the mitochondria. And during the journey, it did a different kind of motion that we are able to do it. And this can help in finding out what really happened inside the cell. We can also reduce the artifact using this simulated environment. Like super resolution method will give some artifact, and using this simulated environment, we can train the deep learning model and can improve further. We can see the continuity is going away because of the artifact introduction. And if we train using our simulated world, simple GAN-based network can actually improve the result of the super resolution method. And we can see this is nice result, continuity is maintained. Now, what is related to the data engineering? I am at the last slide. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what is related to the data engineering? So in our microscope world, if a normal microscope is giving 1 megapixel data, and if we make it a 3D, it will give this much data. And if we make with the video scale, it can span the whole house if we represent 1 megapixel as the Lego blocks. If we go to nanoscopy, it will take much more data, and with 4D data of nanoscopy can cover whole Norway. And if we go for really high throughput data, then it can cover 3 times the size, the area of the moon. Now, if we want to see the amount of data it is going to store for one single image is 0.1 zettabyte. And if we want to see what is the size of the data available in the whole world in 2020, it's 59 zettabytes. So imagine if we have to get hundreds of this data of 4D nanoscopy, and imagine manually annotating it. We do not have neither the data space or not the time to do it. We need a smart way to do it. And with this, I would like to thank my collaborator and our funding agencies who are the part of this work, and my BioAI Lab team. Currently, we are going to increase more. And I would like to open for, I'm ready for the question, and thank you.
Dr. Sarit, you're on mute.
Oh, thank you, Professor Prasad. That was awesome. So there are a few questions, and so I'll ask my question first, because so confocal images and fluorescence images have this particular property. I mean, the difference in property is that confocal images have a very small plane in which you actually get the fluorescence signals. But with the fluorescence images, the background noise would be higher. Now, in that case, how exactly are your annotations being done by a manual annotator? Because that would introduce some more noise, and that will make the annotation itself difficult.
This is very good question, Dr. Sarit. And the result which we saw it currently, it is based on this wide field microscope and fluorescent microscope. We have not done on the confocal. This data, we are doing experiment on confocal for our tissue level imaging. In case, as we have done this with the fluorescent microscope, and that fluorescent microscope, as you are aware, that the limit of resolution is 250 to 300 nanometer, depending on what type of microscope we are choosing. And human can only see up to that. So the in our experiment, we have done 30 experiments, and on 30 images, the manual annotation has been done by experts. And the result which we see is actually on those 30 different experiments. We trained using our simulation data, and we tested on the, it is very difficult to tell what is actually the correct ground truth even by the expert. There are some teams who are developing a large scale annotation data. There is Genelia Lab who has developed 3D level of pixel by pixel annotation, voxel annotation. So it is an interesting question, Dr. Sarit.
Yes. Another question. So did someone try this approach on hair or eye segmentation, or can it be even applied? Does it show any improvement in performance with this approach?
The simulation based is a new area where a lot of researchers are working. We have been working on it for last 2-3 years. And a lot of people are getting very good result in the simulated world. But the limitation is that we should know that how to model our domain. And there are a new area of research going on, like GAN-based data generation. Like sometimes we do not have enough data. And using the GAN generator model, scientists are generating increasing the training data using the GAN generator. And they are finding a good result in that. So I think it can be further extended. I have not tried it, but I think it can be extended in those domains as well.
Okay, one last question. Are biologists very resistant to the AI-based approach, or they are actually taking it up and using it for their research?
This is a very interesting question and very pertinent question. Now, biologists are very keen to do AI, but they are not so computationally or computer-based savvy. So they need a very click-based system, like ImageJ is a world where biologists work. And if we provide a plugin in ImageJ, then they are very keen to use it because they only have to click it. There are companies are approaching us, microscope company like Leica and Carl Zeiss, those companies who want to integrate this development in their system. So resistance are there, but present time, everyone wants to do AI. A lot of people don't know how to do AI. So they are interacting with AI people to do a collaborative work. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Prasad. That was a very nice presentation. Thank you very much. Over to you, and Fatima.
Thank you so much, Professor Dilip Prasad, for sharing your thoughts and bringing us a little bit of both from biology and from the AI perspective. It was indeed very informative. And thanks again for making the time to speak to us.
Thank you.